What is up, everybody? Welcome to Be Wide in the Middle of your home for all things racing with me, Thomas Brandon, and my man with me, as always, Keith Bradley. Keith, how's it going?
What is going on?
Oh, not much, man, not much. We got a bunch of stuff to get to. Busy week of racing. Obviously, NASCAR playoffs kicked off at Darlington. Did you get a chance to watch the race?
I did.
Me too. It was a
Pretty
good
good.
one, pretty good one. Um, which also got me the win in the NASCAR Pick'em, so I definitely got to celebrate that because that has happened way too little times this year. Um, but got big news in the NASCAR world with another driver move, which we pretty much all kind of saw coming to Legacy Motor Club. Plus, we got dirt track recap, hit or miss, and just same old stuff, different day. So, Keith, how was your Labor Day weekend, man? Did you have a good weekend?
It was pretty good. Spent most of the weekend at work, unfortunately, but hey, it's what we live to do, I guess.
Yeah, I fortunately did not. And when I say did not, I mean I didn't work. Now, I did work on my online business, my sim racing business. I did work on that, but I did not do glass. So that was good. It was nice to have a couple days off from doing glass work because uh, it's been a long year with the glass business. It's been a really long year. So that was nice to get a couple days off. Took my son on Sunday. We went out and I took him and his one of his little friends. We went to they got a go-kart place by us with laser tag and all these different things. So we went and did that on Sunday, and then Monday I basically just kind of hung out and did some work on the computer, live streamed, and yeah, just kind of relaxed. So it was it was nice to finally have a weekend off, a full weekend off from the glass business, and but that's short lived. I got work this weekend, and we're back to the grind. So yeah, at least it wasn't hot. That's good. At least it's not
Yeah,
hot now. It's starting to
that's where
cool
I'm at.
off. Yeah,
It
it's
ain't
starting to cool
humid
off.
anymore. It's not really 100 degrees anymore, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard somebody talk one of the pods I listened to must have been Joe Rogan, and he was talking about the heat because like in Texas right now, it's like 112 or something, and he was saying he's like, well, it's just heat, just heat, it's just hot. I do all kinds of stuff in the heat. Yeah, I don't care if it's just heat. I don't care. I hate it. Can't stand it. I hate when I literally have sweat coming out of every pore on my body, right? Where my clothes are sticking to me because I'm sweating so bad because I'm working my ass off in the heat. I don't care if it's just heat. I hate it. It sucks. I don't like it. Never liked it. All right. Dry heat, humid heat, doesn't matter. It's all heat. It all sucks, in my opinion. So glad that it's
Yeah,
coming to an end. Yep. But
heat is heat.
yeah, it is. It's hot. That's all there is to it. We were at one time. Quick story. My uncle Marty, who lives up in Washington, he's one of the funniest people I've ever met. I, he's hilarious. And I can't remember where we were at, but we were like at a public place. Um, we were like down in like Disneyland or something like that. And down in LA, it doesn't get hot that much, right? It does in for just a little bit during the summer, but year round, it's basically like 70s. Just that's what it is. And huh, my my uncle and I were sitting there talking, and it was one of those days where it was like unusually hot, and I was like, God, it's hot, man. I hate this crap. And some guy was walking by, I mean, we don't even know him, and he's like, "Well, California's not bad because it's a dry heat." And Mark Marty's like, "Well, yeah, but it's still hot. Heat is heat." And the guy goes, "Yeah, but humidity makes it worse." It's like, I don't care. 110 is 110. Doesn't matter if it's freaking humid or not. He goes, go put your hand over a flame. He goes, it's still heat. Doesn't matter if it's dry heat or wet heat. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? Get the hell out of here. And that always stuck with me because people always say, well, at least it's a dry heat. It's like, no, dude, I don't care. When it's 110, it doesn't matter if it's dry or humid. It's still hot, right? Like it's still hot. I'm not going to go back to Ohio when it's only 80 and it's 90% humidity and be like, well, it's only 80. I mean, it's a moist heat, but it's only 80. No, dude, it's hot. It doesn't matter what hot is. I don't care what it is. When you can't breathe because it's so hot, it sucks. So, anyways, moving on. We have already established that we hate the heat, so we can we can move on from that. But I got to talk about for this week's Open because we're already hearing it. We've had one race. We're already hearing people talk about it. We're already hearing people say, talking about playoff formats and how we can change it and should we change it and should we make it different. And this week, I was listening to, I don't remember if it was this week's episode or last week's episode. Because I'm kind of behind on my episodes of racing podcasts because I've talked about this before. I don't like to listen to them until after we do ours, just because of the fact that I don't want their opinions to sway mine. I can't remember which one I was listening to, but Chris Rice was on Door Bumper Clear. Chris Rice is the one of the high president or something at Colleague Racing, and they're talking about a new playoff format and how you should only be able to get in if you win. And what if we had these two different playoffs going simultaneously, and one could be for those who won and one could be for those who didn't win, and blah, blah, blah. And the comparison that people always make is stick and ball sports. Folks, auto racing, I don't care what form of racing it is, right? If it's auto racing, it's auto racing. It's not a stick and ball sport. You cannot compare those two. The comparison was, well, if the St. Louis Cardinals make it to the World Series, they had to win those games. Yes, of course, because it's heads up. There's only two teams. What are we talking about here? It's not the same. You can't even draw a comparison, folks. When you play a baseball game, there's only two teams on the field. Somebody has to win, unless it's soccer and then there's ties, right? But somebody has to win. NFL, two teams. Last night, the Chiefs played the Lions in the season opener, right? The Lions won the game. There's got to be a winner. Yes, there are ties, but it is rare. 99% of the time, there's a winner. There has to be a winner. When you get to the Super Bowl, right? Somebody's walking away with that championship because you have to win the game, right? Herman Edwards said it best. We play to win the game, right? It's really, really simple in stick and ball sports. NASCAR is not like that. Auto racing is not like that. The best drivers ever are losing far more than they're winning. It's not even close. So to try to compare this to stick and ball sports is so stupid. And it drives me nuts when these are highly intelligent people. These guys know their shit when it comes to racing. But why we keep doing this is absolutely beyond me. It drives me nuts. I don't understand it. What is the need? What is the desire to keep wanting to change this playoff system, to keep wanting to change the point system? I don't get it. Folks, the drivers who are good are going to always be there at the end. Jimmy Johnson proved this. And if you go back and you look at those that were in those playoffs or in the beginning, the chase, right, for the cup, it was basically the same drivers. You didn't have this massive turnover. It's basically 80%, right? There's about a 20% turnover rate, and you got the same 80% year after year making it in because that's what happens. There has to be some level of consistency, right? That is rewarded. You can't just be this whole win and you're in, and that's the way it has to be. If you don't win a race, you don't make the playoffs. Folks, do you understand if we didn't have that, Kevin Harvick and Brad Keselowski would not be in the playoffs? Neither would Bubba Wallace. Now, folks, does anybody here, right? Does anybody here in their right mind think that Brad Keselowski and Kevin Harvick did not have playoff deserving runs this season? Sure, they didn't get wins, but look at the years that they had. Look at the seasons they had. They're incredible. incredible, right? Think about it. If we were using the original point system back in the day, they would be top 5 in the points. And you want to punish that? Why are we punishing why do we want to punish consistency now? I don't get it. I don't get it. We talk about this whole wanting to return to our roots and stuff like this. I'm not saying revert the points back to the way it used to be and make it a season-long thing, but you don't need to compare it to stick and ball sports and try to turn this into basketball or the NFL. It's not that. It will never be that. So unless you want to start bracketing these guys off and doing heads-up matches within the race, where it's like, okay, Larson, this week you're a 1 seed. You've got to beat McDowell on the track to move on. Unless you want to start doing stuff like that, which I think would be horrible because that's not racing, unless you are drag racing, right? Unless it's the NHRA. Shut up. I'm so tired of hearing it. It's such a stupid argument. I don't understand why we keep having this argument. And then there's people out there like, oh, that's a really good point. You should have to win to move on. Well, shut the up, man. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. Does anybody think that Kyle Larson, right? Like, the guy is a phenomenal driver. He's phenomenal. He had tons of speed. There was people actually saying before the playoffs started, before the first race started, there was people actually saying, I don't think he'll make it to the round of 12. Right? Now, obviously, I understand we live in the whole headline society and you got to just say stupid shit to try to get people to see what you're talking about. But that is a dumb point to make or try to make, right? That is a ridiculous statement. If Kyle Larson hadn't won a race this year going into the playoffs, right, and he just got in on points, is there anybody in their right mind who would think that no, he doesn't have a shot? He doesn't have a shot to make the Final Four. We've seen how fast he can be. We've seen his speed, right? He'll win a race this year. He'd win a race, and then the next race he'd finish 30th, right? Think about all the races where he was running up front and something happened, right? Kansas, between him and Denny Hamlin, right? Just for an incident. Other times where he was up front and got wrecked or something broke or whatever, right? The guy has shown speed. Does anybody really think that Kevin Harvick does not belong in the playoffs and does not have a legitimate shot at making the Final Four, even though he hasn't won a race? Now, look, he's going to have to win. Really, if he wants to make that Final Four, he's going to have to put it in victory lane. That's almost a must for him to make it. I mean, yes, he could still point his way there, but, come the Final Four at Phoenix, right? Whoever those 4 are, you've got to win to bring home that championship. That's the way that it has been now for years. You've got to win. And because if Harvick makes the Final Four, would that make him any less deserving to be there if he doesn't win a race to get there? No. So shut up about it. It's a stupid argument. I'm freaking sick and tired of hearing about it. And NASCAR, just like any other auto racing, is not a stick and ball sport. So stop trying to turn it into something it has not been and will never be. Freaking idiots. Today's episode is brought to you by Produxa. Look, you guys, when it comes to protecting and adding a mirror-like shine to your surfaces, you pretty much have 2 options. You can go with one of those low, quality products out there. Do the old school, like my parents used to do, use the old dish soap to wash your car, or you can go with Produxa. You guys, I've personally used this stuff and it works incredible, man. Whether it's their ceramic coating, their wash, their tire shine, and it not only looks great, but it's super easy to use. I mean, my 10-year-old son was helping me use this stuff, and we used it on my daughter's car, and the car literally looked new. And my daughter's 17, so you can imagine that the car did not look new before we washed it. So if you want to actually give your car a mirror-like shine while in the process protecting it, head over to Produxa.com or the link down in the description below and check out their full line of products today. I can promise you, you will love them. All right, Keith, time for hit or miss. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Sorry, I had to get that rant out of the way. But every time I hear that shit, man, it drives me nuts. I don't understand why we keep having the same stupid conversations. I don't get it, dude. It just it bugs me, man. It really bugs me.
No, I completely agree.
Yeah, it's just dumb, dude. Whatever. All right, moving on. Speaking of Kevin Harvick, because I touched on him in the open, Keith, Kevin Harvick got screwed at Darlington this last week. Hit or miss the mark?
Yeah, I think it hits the mark. Uh,
Yes.
he he was more than screwed. He got fucked.
Yeah,
And
it was
I've seen
tough.
people say, "Oh well, the light was red. How did he not see the light was red?" Well, when you're moving at high speeds like that, you're not paying attention to a red light. The driver's not paying attention to the red light. He's looking forward. The
Yeah.
spotter, from my understanding, has a hard time seeing that portion of the racetrack anyway. And he was far too committed other than unlike the other two that didn't go down pit road. My issue is what the fuck was Tyler Reddick doing? What was he thinking at that point in time, knowing one, you're not going to make it to pit road in time, and two, what the hell?
Yeah,
And
I'm with you on that.
I just hats off to Ryan Newman because he could have really messed up that 45 car, and he did not.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. Harvick got screwed. I thought he was definitely in contention to win. I don't know if he would have won. Obviously, Larson was fast. He ended up winning the race. The 11 car, in my opinion, was actually the best car. Uh, I do think Hamlin probably would have won had they not had that issue with the wheel. So, but it was definitely Harvick. It was definitely a legitimate shot for Harvick, and
Uh,
yeah, he definitely got screwed. I think there needs to be a little bit more leeway with that stuff. You know what I mean? I It's one of those things that it's very rare that it happens where these guys are coming down the pit road. Um, I don't know, man. It seems like this type of thing happens a couple times a year where, and I'm not saying this exact situation, but where you've got somebody, they've already made it past the commitment zone. They've got to come down pit road and then a caution comes out and then, they either drive through or they pit and whichever one they choose, they end up getting screwed on. Because there's also
and
been situations where people decided not to pit and then they end up being held at the exit because it's closed. You know what I mean? Like it happens a
and
multitude of ways.
and that's what I've seen on freaking Twitter. Well, why didn't he just drive through the box? Why didn't he
Yeah.
just drive to the end of pit road and pull back out on the racetrack? Well, Rodney Childers had a very good explanation. They were going to the back anyway.
Yeah.
He was like, "So why
Yep.
not just stop, get the pit stop done and over with? Because we're going to the back. It don't
Yep.
matter either way."
Yep. Now at this point, yeah, their cautions come out. They're going the back
But I,
regardless. So I
I,
I
I,
get it.
I agree with what you're saying though. I feel like there's got to be that whole role needs adjusted because when you're committed, you're committed. There's no going back.
Yeah.
Say he does decide to pull back out on the racetrack and he hits the commitment box. You're screwed
Mm-hmm.
either way.
Yep.
And when you're that far, that close to the line, you're treading really thin ice.
Yeah. Exactly. So I, to me, it's one of those things where what the rule could be, or what they could make it, how they should. I don't know. I have no idea. Um, no clue what they should do or how it should be. All I know is this seems to come up, a couple times a year, and when we get into these playoffs, right, where each race means so much, you can't have these these one-off situations ruin somebody's playoff chances, right? You look at what happened with Harvick, the finish that he got. the, um, you know, what happened with that, and now Harvick, who had been, you know, doing well in the standings, is now below the cutoff. He's one of the first 4 drivers out. Now we still have 2 races. One of them is Bristol, which he's obviously very good at, but, I mean, it's it just, I don't know. It seems like in a situation where we wanna make sure that we're not having these one-off situations ruin people's seasons, we still have these situations like this. So, yeah, they need to come up with something. Add a little bit more leeway, just something, something. So, all right, moving on. Decision was announced that John Hunter Nemechek will be joining Legacy Motor Club next season. So, Keith, John Hunter Nemechek has made the right decision with his NASCAR racing career, joining Legacy Motor Club. Hit or miss the mark?
Um, I don't know which way to go with this. I'm gonna say it misses the mark for now because I mean, let's be honest, his last stint in the Cup Series did not fare too well for himself. And he's
No.
going to be coming off probably a career year in the Xfinity Series. It's going to be very hard to follow that up in a car he's never driven before. Um, so I'm going to say it misses the mark for now. But what this does show me is the writing on was on the wall for Noah Gragson from the jump. From the announcement of Toyota, I think John Hunter was the odd man out. Whether it was the Instagram post or not,
You mean Noah
he was.
Gragson was the odd man out?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Noah was an odd man out. I
Yeah.
was all ass backwards there. My bad.
That's all right.
I He wasn't returning either way. When they made the announcement to move to Toyota, the Instagram post just solidified a reason to get rid of Noah.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Let's be honest here. Toyota and JGR runs the Toyota routes. What they say goes. And if they want John Hunter in the Cup Series, they're going to put him in the Cup Series. It's just moving somebody out. And unfortunately, an Instagram post bit somebody in the ass. But I think he was gone either way at the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I do I think it actually hits the mark. I like the decision for him. I actually I dude, hats off to John Hunter Nemechek because I don't think this has gotten enough um credit for him in terms of betting on yourself. We see it so often with guys who will come up to the Cup Series, and whatever ride they get, and then they're just there. They know they can't compete for wins and championships, but they're going to stay there because they're a Cup driver and that's what they've always wanted to be. And they can make a living. They can do all these different things, right? They'll almost settle. And Nemechek didn't do that, with front row. He saw what the limitations were. And the year that he had that year, it was COVID. There was a bunch of weird stuff going on.
It's weird.
Yeah, it was a weird year. And look, he decided to take a chance and he bet on himself and he went back to the truck series and got in a good truck ride, ended up coming out winning what 5 races that year.
Yeah.
Next year won 2. Xfinity, he's won the most races this year in Xfinity. Like the guy bet on himself and it's paying off. He's now going to a team that's switching over to Toyota. They will definitely be treated like a key partner, right? Obviously, they're not going to be 2311 or Gibbs, but they're in terms of Toyota, that's it, right? So Toyota's got a lot of resources that can pump into them, and I think it's a smart move. I like it,
And
and we're gonna get a chance to see what this kid's really got.
and I'm not gonna say I'm not a fan of the move. I'm a fan of the move. I'm a John
Yeah.
Hunter fan just because of the Nemechek
Mhm.
name. I was a John Nemechek fan or a Joe Nemechek fan
Yeah.
growing up. But I mean, I think this is really gonna. I think it'll help him more than it'll hurt him because he'll have Jimmy Johnson. probably one of the greatest race car drivers in the world
Yes.
to his disposal.
Yep.
And I mean, let's just face it, Ford Performance didn't do him any favors when he went to front row
No, 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 no.
at all.
They did not.
So I like the move. I want to see how it plays out before I can say, yeah, that hits the mark. But
Yeah,
I agree with yours and mine. I see both sides of it.
yeah, exactly. So, all right, moving on. Heading into the playoffs, there were actually people doubting whether or not Kyle Larson could make a run to the Final Four, and he proved them all wrong with his win at Darlington. Hit or miss the mark?
I mean, that misses the mark. Why are you going to doubt Kyle Larson?
Yeah, I don't get it.
Fucking people are stupid. I'm just going to say it. People are dumb. They probably should just keep, whether it's a good opinion or a bad opinion, just keep your mouth shut. I mean, because how are you going to bet against Kyle Larson?
Yeah,
How and
I
why? Why would you do that?
Yeah, even the arguments that kind of made sense when they talked about the team and mistakes and stuff like that. Even then, if that guy's in your car, no matter where you are going, you've got a chance to win. And that's all you need in these playoffs. We saw it last year with Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell made he kept making it round after round because he could pop off a win. That's all you have to be able. You got to be able to put it together for one race, right? Get that win. And right now, I'm sorry, I don't care how many wins Byron has or how well whoever Bushers looked. If I have to win a race, Kyle Larson is at the top of that list. Period. Point blank. End of story. And that is not because I used to race against them and none of that stuff. It is strictly, I think the guy in terms of just pure driving talent is the best there is right now. So I don't know how you could ever even. I get it. You're trying to make a headline, whatever. Congratulations, you're an idiot. Why you would bet against this guy is just beyond me. So yeah, people are stupid. I'm with you.
I mean, I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut because I
Yeah,
could go on all day for
yeah.
this.
It's just people are stupid. So you you got shown up on the first round of the playoffs. Congratulations, you're an idiot. All right, so that's gonna do it all for hit or miss. And when we get back, we're gonna do our NASCAR Pick'em. Plus, we forgot to go over our preseason playoff predictions heading into the playoffs last week. So we're gonna do that today. We're just a week behind, but that's okay. Playoffs haven't changed yet. And then we've got our dirt track recap plus an Ask 3 Wide listener email. So stick around. All right. So it is time for our NASCAR Pick'em. Now, before we do our NASCAR Pick'em, so Keith, at the beginning of the season in February, leading up to Daytona, we actually predicted our 16 drivers for the playoffs. We forgot to go over. I forgot this last week. I forgot all about it, and we didn't go over it. So we're gonna actually go over our predictions now to see how well we did, and who got the most out of the 16. We had some interesting picks. Looking at this, I was kind of shocked. I was like, "Well, I can't believe I picked that guy." And then it's like, "Well, actually, I can believe I picked him." Now that I look at it. So, anyways, Keith, do you remember who you picked for the playoffs? Who your
I
16
know
were?
Ryan Priest was in there, and that was a big fail.
So
That was
you had Kyle Larson, Kevin Harvick, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, uh, William Byron, Tyler Reddick, Ross Chastain, Joey Logano, and Christopher Bell. Your misses were Chase Briscoe, Chase Elliott, Ryan Preece, Daniel Suarez, Alex Bowman, and AJ Allmendinger. So those were you had 10 out of 16.
so what you're telling me is I predicted the future by saying months ago that Chase Elliott wasn't going to make the playoffs. Is that what you're
Exactly.
saying? Cool.
Exactly. You
I
did
got
get
something
that
in
right.
common
You
with
get that
Nostradamus.
right. So I had Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, William Byron, Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, Tyler Reddick, Joey Logano, Martin Truex Jr., and Bubba Wallace. And I missed on AJ Allmendinger, Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott, and Daniel Suarez. So I actually had 12 out of 16. So I actually beat you at something this year. So that's good. Which is the only reason we're going over this, because I actually won something this year against you, because so far I have been putting up massive goose eggs. So yeah, those were our playoffs. So overall, we were pretty close. A couple of those guys are, I mean, first of all, Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman, take them out, right? I think with the seasons that they had, with the injury, the penalty, all the stuff like that, I think you kind of just have to chalk that up as, at one point Alex Bowman was leading points. And it wasn't like after 2 races, like we were weeks into the season. So
Yeah, and back
that
injury didn't help him at
it did
all.
not. It did not. I think the two biggest surprises for me, and like I said, take Chase Elliott out of it because of what happened with him, but I think the two biggest surprises to me are Suarez and Allmendinger. You know, I'm really shocked by those two not making it, especially as good as they are on road courses and as many road courses as we ran this season, right? For them to not get a win, I I'm just really shocked by that, and I think it's really a testament to how well the, the oval guys are on road courses now, right? If you think about, if we were going to, right, like, so take the Roval coming up, which I know that's not really a road course, but whatever. It's the Roval's coming up. Is your first pick gonna be one of these quote unquote road course specialists? Like, for me, it wouldn't be. I would be picking a Denny Hamlin or a Kyle Larson before I would be picking any of those guys. Hell, I'd pick Kevin Harvick, right? Or a Christopher Bell before I'm picking a Suarez or an Allmendinger, one of these quote unquote road course guys.
I completely agree.
Yeah, so I think it has more to do with these guys have just gotten way better.
Yeah, and it's a testament to how hard
Mhm.
Cup racing really is. Because I
It
mean, hell,
is.
we've seen Suarez in pretty comfortably even after
Mhm.
before the win at Sonoma,
Yep.
and the '99 team kind of plateaued. I
Yeah,
don't.
well, I think the if you even look at what's happened with Ross this year, I think those guys have just they've hit a wall somewhere.
Well, I think it was a Hendrick wall.
Yeah.
Mr. Rick Hendrick set Ross down. It was like, you need to chill your ass out, or you're not going to last long. Because I mean, ever since that first Darlington race, we kind of seen Ross kind of go
Yeah.
into hiding, pretty much. The
Yeah.
99, man, they've really been really up and down. They've shown a ton of speed at times. It's oddly similar to what you see at Stewart Haas. You have
Yes.
one guy carrying the boat, and
Carrying
the
the
rest,
flag and
yeah,
pulling
and the
everybody
rest
along.
the rest could barely carry an oar.
Yeah.
Um, it just it goes to show how hard it is to make the playoffs, let alone win a race.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, I
Well, and
think
it,
it's yeah, I mean, I think it's just a really, like you were talking about, it's really a testament to how hard NASCAR is.
yeah, well, I mean, and this is why we call it the top form of American
Mhm.
motorsports, and it shows. Because like
Yep.
I had Ryan Preece making it because I figured, all right, Stuart Haas is going to figure this out at some point.
Yeah.
Some point they're going to figure it out, but they have not, and I blame Ford because I mean, even if you look at all the other Ford teams outside of RFK, they have figured something out that the other Ford teams cannot find,
Yep.
and it is amazing to see. It's crazy to see what the playoffs can do to teams as
Mhm.
far as either motivating them, digging deep and finding things that other teams can't find. And I'm not going to sleep on Kevin Harvick through the playoffs. You can't. You can't bet on this guy to miss it. And he might. He could miss the next round, but I would not bet against that man. I think he's got a point to prove. He had a point to prove at Darlington.
Yep.
It's a damn shame because if you take that 4 car out of the playoffs, Stewart-Haas does not have a car in the
Yeah.
playoffs since a very long time, since
Yep.
the arrival of Tony Stewart at Stewart-Haas, and it just it's I think the NASCAR playoffs are more competitive and more exciting than some baseball playoff series.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I'm with you there. And look, I love baseball. I love baseball.
Me
I
too.
love football. You know what I mean? Like I love those sports. But I think the NASCAR playoffs, I don't think you can make it better than it is. I really don't. I think yeah. So, anyways, all right. Along with that, really big news coming out, which I I think it's going to have an effect on the playoffs just because it's now done and over with and they can move on, which is Denny Hamlin signing the multi-year agreement with Joe Gibbs. This also cements 2311's position moving forward, right? Now that they know Denny's at Gibbs, this was a big part of the contract. You know, Denny kept saying this is why it's taking longer because of 2311. There was just certain things they wanted to make sure were in place. They obviously signed the deal. And so I actually think that's a big deal because now there's no more answering those questions. You don't have to worry about that. You can just move on. So yeah, big news with that. I wasn't shocked by that. Were you shocked by that, Keith? I mean, did you ever think that Denny Hamlin was going to be going anywhere other than Gibbs? I didn't see that happening.
I'd say he had better odds of returning to Joe Gibbs than Kyle Busch ever did.
Yeah.
Uh, the relationship that Joe, or I'm going to say the whole Gibbs family, has with Denny
Mhm.
is outstanding. It's amazing. Um, I was not surprised. I figured it was going to take a little longer because not only did Denny have to think of himself, but he's got to think of the future of 2311.
Yes.
Do you want to
Mhm.
stay with Toyota that is ascending, or do you want to go to, let's say, Ford that is kind of plateaued in the middle? They're there,
Yeah.
but they're not there. I mean, you could make the jump to Chevy. There's a strong argument that Chevy's really good. Um, I was not surprised by it. I'm happy to see
Me too.
Denny staying with Toyota. I mean,
Me
it
too.
it was weird seeing Kyle Busch leave. It would have been really weird to see Denny Hamlin leave
Yeah.
for a different team.
Yeah. I'm really hoping Denny Hamlin can get a championship. I
Me
really
too.
am.
He deserves it. He
He
really does.
does. He does. So I'm really hoping he can get one. And I think he's got a really good shot at it this year. So that being said, let's move on to our NASCAR pick'em here for week 2 of the playoffs. We've got Kansas coming up. So last week I had Larson, you had Byron. Larson got the win. Byron finished, what did he finish? Fourth, fifth? He was in the
Fourth.
top five, fourth. Okay. So both of us had good races. That's just Larson happened to be a little bit better. So I'm going to pick first this week. And I am actually going to be going with the man we just talked about, Denny Hamlin. He won here in the
Damn
fall.
it.
And I think the Toyotas are really good at these types of tracks. Um, that these I guess you would call them aero tracks. These mile and a halves. They seem to always be fast and be running up front. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Denny this week at Kansas. Who do you got, Keith? I know I probably
Well,
just stole your pick.
I was gonna go Denny Hamlin, but I was roundhouse kicked there, so now I can't take him. Man, I gotta. It's tough because I want to pick Chris Buescher, but I don't want to pick Chris Buescher, so I'm gonna go with Kyle Larson, the guy that Denny had to beat.
Okay, that's not bad. That's a smart pick. That is. Um, I've actually got Busher on my radar for
Dude,
later.
yeah,
I do. Um,
he could very well walk into Bristol and win there again.
yes, absolutely.
Really could. I mean, He won there what last year? The
Was it
playoff
last
race?
year that he won? I
Yes.
think it was, yeah.
But
So
how's about the rise of RFK?
it's been incredible, man.
I
It's
was
been
a
incredible.
I was a Roush fan growing up. I was a huge Mark Martin fan. Matt Kenseth died. I loved Matt Kenseth. When those guys left and Carl Edwards left, man, they fell off the biggest canyon there is in the world.
Yeah, it was tough, man. One of the best interviews I've ever heard about Roush was Greg Biffle talking to Dale Jr. on the Dale Jr. download. And now I've mentioned this before, but for those of you guys who don't know this, my my family up in Washington, they all know Greg Biffle, like, very well. My cousin David was best friends with Greg Biffle. They're still very, very close growing up. And you used to kind of hear this, I remember my cousin Shelby when she was back in North Carolina for a little while, she'd actually stayed there a little bit with them and stuff like that. And there was rumblings of this, but obviously he's not telling people, he's not spilling the bean and stuff. But we would hear stuff like, oh, they're just kind of having some issues right now. They've fallen a little behind, things like that. But when he came out on the Dale Jr. download and talked about how, you know, like, he was like, I should have left there. We fell way behind. We got behind on technology and innovation. When you start hearing that stuff, that was shocking because you wouldn't expect that from Roush. They were always so far ahead of the curve. They were thought as great innovators, and they really fell behind there. And obviously we saw them. They do the whole Roush Yates motor thing that obviously improves the power and stuff like that. Fenway comes along, obviously helps with that. But even then, like you said, after they lost Kenseth and Edwards and Biffle and all these guys, Mark Martin, these guys who were just these mainstays with Roush for so long and had really been the banner carriers of that organization, they leave, and now it's, well, who do they got? And what are they doing? They're running horribly. And then Keselowski comes along and they get this thing turned around. And it's taken less than 2 years. It's insane to think about the turnaround that organization has had from the fall off that they had.
It it almost reminds me of when Tony Stewart went to Stewart Haas because
Yes, exactly.
we seen Haas. They were terrible,
Mhm.
like laughable. And then
People
Tony goes
thought Tony
there and
Stewart was nuts.
oh, they called him an idiot.
Yep.
Like, what are you doing leaving one of the best teams in racing to go
Yep.
to one of the worst? And let's be honest here. Gene Haas before Tony Stewart was the Rick Ware Racing of that time.
Yes.
They were a laughing stock. They were a joke. They tainted Ward Burton's freaking name for Christ's sakes. And and now you've seen the turnaround there, and then you look at RFK, and it's like, this is unbelievable. This is
Mhm.
amazing. Because now you're not only are you seeing the rise of RFK, but you're seeing the rise of Chris Buescher, and I'm here for it.
Yep. Yep. So, it's been incredible. It's been awesome to see, and uh, I love it. I absolutely love it. So yeah. Anyways, back to our pick'em. So I've got Hamlin. You've got Larson. You still have uh,
Commanding lead.
a commanding lead in the points over me. Yes, it's not even close. But I guess if I win the
So
rest
fun.
of the races, it might be close. I don't know. But anyways, so yeah, that's who we've got for next week. So that's going to do it for our NASCAR pick'em. And now it is time for our dirt track recap. And yeah, a ton of stuff going on. So last night, Gold Cup out here in California, about 40 minutes from where I'm at, kicked off night number 1 prelim. Larson got the win. Now Kyle Larson's only running the prelim night. He's not running the final night on Saturday night because obviously NASCAR is running in Kansas. He's got the playoffs. That's a more pressing issue. But he did get the win last night in the prelim night. Corey Day, the kid just continues to impress. Um, Ended up finishing third, moved up 8 spots in the feature, which was really incredible. This was a stout field. Although this was a prelim night, this was not um, some, schmuck night. You had Kyle Larson out there, Logan Schuchart, Brad Sweet, Carson Macedo, McFadden, Selzy, they were all running. And then you had a bunch of, really local studs out there. Shane Golobic, Chase Johnson led for the first 21 laps. He looked really good, but when Larson passed him for the lead, he fell off quite a bit. Uh, Noah Gass, Cole Macedo, Tim Kading, Andy Forsberg. Like, it was a pretty stout field. Now, last night there was only 28 drivers total. There was a little more than 60 registered for the event, but there was a couple of guys who ran the 360 show on Wednesday night, wrecked their cars, and that was the car that they were going to be running in the Gold Cup, and they had to fix the car before they could put the 410 motor in. And so they've been pushed to tonight's prelim. So tonight's prelim is actually going to be closer to 40 cars. It was going to be like 30 and 30, but now it's going to be closer to 40 tonight because of what happened. So they had to kind of change a couple little things around because the system it's all based off points. You earn points. It's a 6-car invert in the heats. You earn points every time you're on the track, and then that'll determine the field on Saturday, at least lock in the top, and then you've got the consolations to get to the feature. So this is the way that they ran Gold Cup for years when I used to go when I was a kid. This was always one of the biggest shows. There was a time where the Gold Cup Race of Champions was literally just one tier below, the Kings Royal and the Knoxville Nationals. No joke. Like, there was an argument that could be made in the late 90s, early 2000s that it was, you could make the argument that it was a crown jewel race. It was that big a deal to win Gold Cup back then. And it really lost a lot of its luster there for a while. They condensed the show down to like 2 nights, and they got rid of the points, and it just was bad. You kind of got a behind the scenes look at what bad promoters can do, or promoters who don't know what they're doing. And now, with Larson and Sweet and these guys who took it over, it's nice to see it kind of returning back to what it used to be, which was awesome to watch last night. So I was planning on going. I didn't get the chance to make it up there. Unfortunately, the glass business had me too busy. I'm not going to make it up there tonight. I'm not going to make it there Saturday. So once again, I'm missing Gold Cup, but that's okay because in 2 weeks I'll be at the Four Crowns, so it'll all be worth it. But Keith, did you see the race last night? Did the prelim last night, or did you happen to see any of the highlights of it?
I seen a little bit of the highlights. I was watching the USAC race, but no surprise, Kyle Larson winning. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not surprised at all.
yeah,
Um, I, I'm looking forward to running tonight because I want to see what Tanner Holmes can do. I want to see
yes.
what he can do in that 1T because I'm telling you, everybody's sleeping on this kid in that car, and I think it's going to end up
Mm-hmm.
boding well for that young man.
Yes, I do too. Um, he's obviously got a ton of talent. Um, and he
And
he has shown it right so far. I do think he's gonna get a win before the season's over.
I completely agree, and it wouldn't surprise me, and it wouldn't surprise me with another young up and rising guy, Corey Day. It wouldn't surprise me
Yes.
to see him win the whole Gold Cup weekend.
Yep. Yeah.
Dude, he's someone to really keep an eye on.
Yes.
Like 100%. His
Yes.
stock is rising in my eyes.
No, it is to me. I said this weeks ago. I think he's the number one, up and comer in dirt racing right now. I truly believe that. I had heard about Corey Day. Obviously, last year I saw some stuff that he was in. But when I started early this season, when my buddy Kyle, I talked about him before, who's racing against Corey Day every single weekend, when he started telling me about the stuff that this kid was doing on the track, and then I went and I watched it, and I was blown away. I was blown away. Um, really, when I saw him at Hanford, uh, running the King of the West show, and that was the one that McFadden was running. When I saw what Corey Day did in that race, I was just like, done. This kid's got it, and it's been really impressive. Now, for all that being said, I think Tanner Holmes is literally number 2 on that list in terms of up and comers. I really do. I think that kid has got an insane level of talent as well. And I'm with you. I think he's going to pop off a win here in that car. Remember, hey man, Jacob Allen won this race last year. Jacob Allen won Gold Cup last year. The year before, Schuhart won Gold Cup. So Shark Racing has really owned this track. Now, obviously, it is different. We got the different tire this year, and that has thrown some teams off. And that 1A team has seemed to have had trouble with it, or at least Jacob had trouble with it. But since Tanner's been in that car, they've looked really, really good. So I'm with you. I'm looking forward to watching it tonight. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how well he does at a track that he's raced a lot at. So, yeah. Now you mentioned the USAC race. USAC, they were at, what was it, Devil's Bowl last night? Is that where they were at?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they junked 4 cars in qualifying.
Yeah. Yep. And they were running, who were they running with? Is it ASCS or ASSC? I think it's a co-shank, yeah,
AS, yeah.
ASCS. Yep. So they were with the ASCS last night. Um, the Macho Man got the win, Brady Bacon.
No surprise.
Uh, you know,
Robert Blue had a chance.
yes, he did.
He
Um,
was.
I don't know. Blue's one of those guys I always think he's got a chance. But
I
yeah, that was Bacon's what, 51st or 50, I don't know. Something went. He's just, the guy's really, really good. He got the win. Swanson finished second, Kyle Cummins third. You had Rogers and Grant fourth and fifth. And then, Brody, I always say this dude's name. Is it Roa? Kevin Thomas Jr., Emerson Axon, Mitchell Moles, and Kyle Jones rounding out the top 10. The God dang it. Were the midgets didn't run last night, right? I don't
USAC
think so.
midgets?
No, they didn't run last night, did they?
No,
I didn't think
I don't
so.
think so.
Yeah. They are,
I think they're.
I think they're off until,
Let's see. They are off till September 21st. They
yeah,
return
that's
to
right.
Gas City.
Gas City. Yep. So, um, dude, I'm so looking forward to the Four Crown. God, I cannot wait for the Four Crown. I cannot wait for the Four Crown. That is
Should
going to
be a
be
national holiday.
so much fun. Yes, it should be. Well, for me, it's going to be a holiday. Yeah. So the other big news is tonight we've got the kickoff to the World 100. Also, which me and Keith were talking about this before today's show. Gold Cup's going on, and then also the All-Star Series. They've got the uh, Tuscarora 50, which is $56,000 to win, going on at the same time in Port Royal. Last night they had I don't even know what it's called. It was just, I guess, a prelim night, but it was 10,000 to win. And Keith, we were talking about this before. We see this a lot more, it seems like, in sprint car racing than we do with the late models, right? Where you've got the All Stars with the 56,000 to win event going on at the same time the Outlaws are running Gold Cup. The late models have got the World 100 going on, but you don't see, right, across the country, another late model race that's 50,000 to win going on. Like that doesn't seem to happen.
No, and it don't happen often. And
No.
and that's a trend that I've noticed on that side of dirt racing. The late
Mhm.
model, whether it's a Northern Series, West, East, I don't care, insert any series that you can think of, they
Yep.
don't compete against one another when it comes to big money events because they know, okay, what's our best way of getting asses in the stands, cars in the pits? Let's
Yeah.
not compete against each other. Don't work against each other. Let's work with each other to bring in 100+ race cars. And it just blows my mind that in sprint car racing, it's always it's always split down the middle.
Yeah.
Got a big race over here, and then you got a big race on the other side competing with each other. Because not only is that taking fans away from the racetrack and race cars away from the racetrack, but it's taking folks like me and you that are picking and choosing on which one are we watching.
Yep.
We're gonna watch Gold
Exactly.
Cup, or are we gonna watch the Port Royal race, or are you going to watch the World 100?
Yep.
And you can't really insert the late model stuff into the sprint car stuff. They're two uncomparable types of racing. Um, but the point is why the fuck? Why would you do that? Why would you want to compete with one another instead of saying, hey, why don't we just push this back a week so that way we can get 80+ race cars here and make it one of the bigger events? And then the Gold Cup could be bigger than what it already is.
Yep.
And the Tuscarora 50 could be bigger than what it is. But I don't know. Maybe it's just me being too logical on it, or I'm just not seeing everything else that everybody else sees with it because it just don't make sense to me. It'd be like Eldora putting on the million for the sprint car races, and let's say Lawrenceburg Speedway is going to put on a 50,000 to win sprint car race. It just don't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And
That's if I'm just stupid and I'm not seeing it.
yeah, I that could be the case for me too. Lord knows I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I I just think when we look at those two those two types of racing, and if you look at the two premier series for those two types of racing. Now, first of all, it seems like on the late model side, you hear a whole lot more about um the what you would call kind of the other series, right? Outside of the World of Outlaws and the Lucas Oil late model series, right? People talk about, the XR1 series or whatever the hell it is. I mean, the Hunt to Front, they got their series, right? You've also got the dirt car stuff. I mean, it's like there's a bunch of other stuff that people talk about, and it seems to be a lot more prevalent than on the sprint car side. Sprint car side, it's really like you got the Outlaws, you got the All Stars, and then that's kind of it, right? There's some regional stuff that's out there. Um, that gets some pub, but for the most part, you're really just paying attention to those top two. That's really it. And we see it where, on the late model side, I feel like the late model drivers, especially the big stars, they're far more flexible with their schedules. And we see so many more of these, I guess you would call them like non-sanctioned events, right? Like the World 100, that's not it's not like it's a straight um sanctioned event. You know what I mean? It's not a Lucas Oil series race. It's not a I don't think it's an outlaw race. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just a event that Eldora's putting on, and you'll see all these guys go run it. And we don't see that often in the sprint car series. We don't see that with the sprint cars, right? We had the Eldora Million this year, but that's it, right? Like that's really a one-off thing. And we have a whole lot more of these events in the late models, it feels like, than we do with the sprint cars. And it seems like the late model racing has really, I mean, obviously it's always been big, but it seems like it's getting much bigger. The purses are obvious; they seem way bigger. That you hear far more about, even with the sprint cars adding the high limit series, you still hear far more late model events that are 50,000 to win, 30,000, 25,000, 100,000, right? The type of thing. Then you do the sprint cars. So I don't know. It's really interesting. I wish we could see more of these types of events on the sprint car side. I really do, because I think it would help the sport. This whole you know, keep our drivers just for us type of thing, in our series. I wish it wasn't like that. Most people, if you ask most people they might be late model fans, but they're not hardcore following the series each and every day. Most people couldn't tell you who's running which series full time, right? Most people can't tell you that. They don't know. And here's the deal. They don't care, right? They don't care. All I know is that if I'm watching the World 100, I can expect all the big guys to be there, and they will be, right? So at the end of the season, right, when we've got the World Finals going on at Charlotte, it's not just going to be the outlaw drivers that are there. The Lucas Oil guys are going to be there too. You know what I mean? So I think the late model side has kind of got that figured out better than the sprint car side, and I think it's one of the reasons why we're seeing such growth on the late model side. So yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
so World
I
100 kicking off. Um, we've also got big news at Longhorn Racing. So Longhorn Chassis just announced that Brandon Sheppard will be the new house car for Longhorn moving forward. Starts January of 2024. So Tim McCready is going to be out as the Longhorn house car. This is really unprecedented. Sheppard was the house car for Rocket for years. That's where he had, a lot of his success, right? When he won all those championships with the Outlaws, won all those races, you know, basically he was the Rocket house car. Um, and now he's going to be the Longhorn house car. If you look at the transition that they made, I think it is a true testament to Brandon Sheppard, because they start off the year a little rocky, right? You got to think he's switching chassis is a big deal. That's a really big deal, especially for these late model guys. It's not like on the sprint car side where you're going from a Maxim to a triple X, right? Like going from a Rocket to a Longhorn, because there's so much more wiggle room these guys have got with these cars in terms of what they can do. It's a big deal. And, the beginning of the year they struggled, they got it figured out, and they're looking strong. And I think next year he is going to be one of the big time championship contenders in whichever series he runs. Obviously, we don't know if he's going to do the Outlaws or Lucas Oil, but I think he's going to be a championship contender. And I think it's cool. I like it. I think it's really cool because he's had a really good season. He's got 4 wins, and I think now it's only going to get better. When you become a house car, I mean, you can obviously, we talked about being like a key partner with these manufacturers in NASCAR. When you're the house car, you are the partner. So it should be interesting. So really cool. Congrats to them. That's a big deal to go from, you know, Rocket Racing being the house car, and then now you're the house car with Longhorn. So pretty incredible. All right, so that is our dirt track recap. And before we wrap things up, which I should say we are going to wrap things up with an Ask 3 Wide question. So this is actually pretty interesting. I actually got this question probably 2 weeks ago. I wrote it down and I literally forgot about it. And when I was pouring through the stuff today, I found my playoff thing, where we made our playoff predictions. And underneath it was the Ask 3 Wide question that I was supposed to use as well. So this was from Jerry, and this is it's kind of a fun question, but Jerry says, Keith, Tommy, if you guys could start a race team in any form of racing, what would it be and who would your driver be? Now, I know we've been asked before who we would pick as a driver, but in terms of starting a race team, I don't think we've been asked that before. So, Keith, I'll let you go first. If you could start a race team, what would it be?
Man, that's tough. But I'd start a non-wing sprint car team, 2-car team, and I would hire T-Maz and Kevin Thomas Jr. to race the cars.
Not a bad idea. I mean, obviously, both those guys can wheel, and they are they're crowd favorites. I mean, obviously, T-Mez is Meserol is going to be one of those guys where even 20 years from now, right? I mean, because I think Meserol is pretty close to my age. He's late 30s, I think, around 40, maybe mid to late 30s, somewhere around there. But he's going to be wrenching cars when he's 70. Like you're going to see Meserol around the track until the day he dies, which is
Yeah.
awesome. I love that fact about him. But fans love him. And no matter if he's running first or 15th, the guy's putting on a show. And anytime you have a race team, you can work with that. And not only that, he's obviously a really good driver as well. So, yeah, I like that. I would go a different route. As much as I would love to have a midget or non-wing team, I wouldn't do it just because money-wise, I don't think it's worth it. Unless you're doing like Keith Coons and you're selling out rides for 300 grand a year. I just I couldn't deal with the finances of it. It would drive me nuts. So, yeah, I would probably go wing racing is what I would do. I'd go 410 sprint car racing. If I could hire any driver, I would hire Corey Day right now. I know that's crazy, but I would if I had the money to start an outlaw team, I would start an outlaw team and I would be taking Corey Day on tour. That's what I would be doing. Actually, I would probably do the All-Stars first. We'd go run a season with the All-Stars, then we would go run the Outlaws. Just because the All-Star schedule is a little bit more spread out. It's not as daunting as the Outlaw schedule is. The kid's also still in high school. He's like 16 or 17. So I want to get him graduated before before we got him full time, on the road 40 weeks out of the year. So but yeah, that's what I would do. Money wise, the wing stuff is better. I got to tell you though, man, we were just talking about it. I'm
Be
almost
tempted to
thinking
start a late model team.
yeah, I'm almost thinking to start a late model team. So, because of the money, but also those cars are so expensive. Um, and technology wise, that's where those cars, there's so much that goes into them now, right? When you think about, um, the suspension components and what you can do to them and it's just insane. There was a guy, if you haven't watched it, it's one of the best racing videos I've ever seen. Uh where and I gotta look this up real quick because this guy he built a it shows kind of the wiggle room that you have in late model racing. What's the guy's name? I want to find him because I want to give him his due. Uh, Austin Kirkpatrick. Austin Kirkpatrick. He did a video, and the video is titled "This suspension technology was so good it was instantly banned." And in the video, he builds himself a front axle late model. Okay, so for those of you guys who don't know, on the dirt late models now, on the front end, they're independent suspension. He built a front, basically, think of a sprint car front axle, but on a dirt late model, right? Like that's essentially what he was doing. And he goes through the issues that he had, how he developed it, what they had to change, all this stuff. And this car was dominant, dominant. And basically it got banned. But when you watch the story of Jonathan Davenport with the car Watusi, right? That had this suspension component on it that they had kind of figured out. And there was actually Flow Racing did a video on that component just recently where they talked about it. And it was so good that at the end of the season they couldn't run it anymore. Right. So you can do this type of stuff with the late models, and it's one of the reasons why they're so expensive. And when you find that thing, that technology, that advantage, you damn sure aren't giving it up. You're gonna milk that son of a for everything it's worth, right? Because that's just insane, that you can have the car that good. So yeah, they're definitely they're obviously interesting. I always wished I could have worked on the dirt late models more because I'm such a nerd when it comes to um you know the suspension and setting them up, and the late models always really intrigued me because of all of the mechanical stuff that's going on, and then how big a deal the downforce has become with those cars, right? Like the aero with those cars is so important now. Where like on the sprint cars, it's the wing, right? Like that's really it. It's the wing. You're not going to be doing anything to those bodies that are going to really make that big a difference with the aerodynamics of it. It's essentially the wing because you've got the nose wing and the top wing, and the nose wing is planting the nose, but it's also getting air up onto the top wing. That's all. That's it. Or the late models, you've got the downforce on the nose, you've got the side force, you've got the cars hiking up and creating the downforce on the rear, right? It's really interesting to me, and I've always just nerded out on that stuff. So I wish I could have got into it more. But yeah, yeah, maybe I would start a late model team. I'd start a late model team. I don't know. Be interesting. So, but anyways, you guys, that's gonna do it all for this week's show. So Keith, my man, have a great weekend. And really quick, man, before we go, how's your son doing?
He's doing good. He's doing better. The unfortunate part is now my right eye is absorbing whatever the hell he had.
Oh no.
So
Get to the
we're
doctor
just
and get some antibiotics.
oh, absolutely. We're just passing it around. But the good thing is we're all on the mend. We're all on the upside.
Well, that's good. That's good. So, anyways, all right. Well, that is going to do it all for this week's show. We will be back next week with more action from both NASCAR and obviously the dirt track. So, anyways, Keith, my man, enjoy your weekend. Hope everybody continues to improve and get better.
Will do. Thank you.
I
Appreciate it. You
will.
have a
Yep.
good weekend
Oh, I
yourself.
will. I'll be working all weekend, so nothing new there. But anyways, I will enjoy it as much as I possibly can. So thank you very much, as always, for joining us, everybody. Please like, share, download, subscribe, all that other good stuff, and do all that for us. And we will be back here next week to do it all over again. So have a great weekend out there, and until next time, take care.